All right. Say something one more time.
Something one more time.
There you go. Perfect.
Okay.
All right, we're live.
Here we go.
Podcast number 4. Introduce yourself.
I'm Claudin Mangum. I'm a yoga teacher, studio owner, and I have the pleasure and the honor to teach yoga classes here every Sunday at 10:30 a.m.
Mm-hmm.
We're going on, what is it, almost 2 years
Is it?
doing this?
I didn't even realize it was that
Do you
long.
remember like the whole like interaction, how it started?
How it started? Yeah, I definitely do. Because I was looking, I'm very Instagram based. Like, I'll find everything I want on Instagram. So if I'm searching for something, shoes, clothes, whatever, I go through Instagram first. So I remember looking for a yoga class or a yoga teacher, and the first thing I went to was Instagram. And I think I seen you guys immediately. I looked yoga in the area or something like that, and you guys had a nice Instagram page, and then that went to like your website. And I was like, okay, they care about. I don't know. It's like if you have a brand or something, it makes me believe in you a little bit more.
Yeah.
It can't just be some random teacher. I have to have an insight of who you are a little bit.
Right.
And I seen that, and I seen you guys have that. So I said, yeah, let me hit them up. Let's see if they're interested. I know you guys were based in Bahama at the time.
Yeah, and still are. I mean, essentially.
Yeah. Now you're all over, but we'll get to that. And so yeah, I was just making sure it would work for you coming to Creedmoor and stuff.
Yeah.
But yeah, I can't believe it's 2 years.
Yeah.
Is that how it worked? Is that how you remember it?
It felt like early COVID, but I think we were already good like 8 or 9 months into it. So things were still pretty heavily locked down, I guess, kind of thing, or super cautious. And so on the yoga front of things, like we had completely pivoted to virtual. Like whereas I started out teaching in a physical space where not only was I teaching the people in front of me, but also I was offering hands-on assess. I was putting my hands on people, and we would pack a room, the space that where I taught could hold in a packed room about like 28 mats. And so literally when it was that packed, it was like kind of shimmy in between bodies, and then assist this person, turn around and assist that person. And then we go to COVID where it's like 6 feet apart. Don't put your hands on anyone. Don't breathe on anyone. And stay home when you can. So that was like a really big pivot. And then, yeah, we were starting to see that like life can go on beyond that.
Right.
And then I think that's when we first like, got to know each other. And you're like, are you up for this? I'm like, I'm so ready to get back in front of people. I love my virtual community, and I believe that community can be built through the virtual space, and yet there's something super special about being in front of people. Plus, when you were like Creedmoor, I once had it said to me like, Creedmoor, that's like the yoga desert. And I was like, I want to go explore the yoga desert.
Right.
So like I was like, cool, let's go there. Let's bring yoga to Creedmoor. I love it.
Yeah. I guess, how did COVID impact your business besides just the pivot or whatever?
Yeah.
Was it at a certain spot and then COVID happened and it went to virtual, and maybe you weren't at the same spot, or maybe you grew, like, how did COVID affect the business besides just the virtual thing?
It's interesting you asked that. So my twin sister and I started Trilogy, and kind of conceptualized it in the fall of 2019, like late fall. And we wanted to bring it to our area, which was like North Durham, Bahama, Rougemont, Butner, that kind of space. And we're like, we could make this work. And in the meantime, we really wanted in this space. Let's see where we could possibly set up brick and mortar. And so we were taking our time with that. Also about, okay, well, finding a small business loan, those sorts of things, starting to get that lined up. And then the more we were looking through it, we're like, we don't want this much time to go by without like already building a community. And we had people already in our lives that wanted yoga, needed yoga, and we didn't want all those other steps to kind of get in the way of offering that
Right.
or being a part of that. And so I was like, let's just start in my living room. I
Okay.
had heard a couple people do that sort of thing. It's like, just make it work, like push the furniture aside. Some friends who own studios in other states. And so I was like, I can do it. I've got a huge living room.
Okay.
We're going to have you all over sometime so you can see. But literally, so what we would do, I put up curtains because there's this big kind of opening into the dining room space. And I put up curtains, and we would shove all of my living room furniture behind the curtains into the dining room space, like stacked furniture, pull the curtains and be like, what? This is the yoga studio. And it worked. We did that from we did a couple like free donation classes in December of 2019, and then officially opened our doors, officially opened our home at in January of 2020.
Yeah.
So we had about 8 weeks of that, 8.5 weeks of that.
And then stuff hit the fan, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And since COVID, so we're now here at the facility, and you're at Duke, and you do the farm thing.
Mm-hmm.
So take me into that.
Yeah. So it's interesting because you asked, like, how did, like, aside from going virtually, like, what else shifted? And I think that was really great. It caused us to, like, really explore our creativity, us being Lucina and myself, and which we already lean to. We just love, like, kind of conceptualizing and manifesting and creating things already. So that was cool. And yet we were constantly pivoting. It was like, okay, now we can do partially in person, or we can meet, but it can only be a group size this big, and meanwhile we've built a virtual community. So we were constantly pivoting and wanting to accommodate to all that, which led to kind of like uncertainty of, like, identity, or like, but who, and it really took until very recently to be like, wait, who are we? Because we've just kind of gone through all these evolutions, and we don't want to leave anyone out that we've brought along the way, and yet so much has changed, and now we just need to kind of, like, narrow into, like, what is it we offer? What is it we want to offer? What do we do best? And focus on that.
Yeah, one thing I've learned definitely from business, or being a part of business for a long time, is it's always pivoting.
Yeah.
Always. Because you're trying to be successful in whatever fashion you find. Whatever success means to you, it means differently to different people.
Right.
So, and sometimes you have to figure out what that is first. What is success to you? And then you can go and figure out your identity and find your path or find your lane. And sometimes maybe you got to take a lane that you don't particularly enjoy, and that teaches you, hey, maybe I don't like that lane as much as I like maybe this lane, so let's try this lane. So business is constantly pivoting. Even, I started in 2015, I think, training, and so what is it now, 2022, and I'm still trying to fine-tune what it is I'm trying to do.
That's part of the growth process, right? And I think, to me, what I hear you having gone through is just like the awareness that you have that growth potential, and that you're, like, willing to see that and shift and move in that direction. And that oftentimes, for myself, for many people, I'm sure, is like what stops them from continuing on. That's where, like, a business fails or halts, because they're not, like, willing to adapt with those changes, right? And it's got to, like, the awareness needs to be there, and the willingness,
and the thing that you may try a new thing, and it may fail.
Yeah.
Just like with this podcast thing, right? So we've been trying to do the video, we've been trying to do it right and nice, and we're just constantly learning every video. Like, okay, this is what I need to work on this time, or maybe, let's cut the video and do clips, and let's do the recording on the phone. But I want to do a podcast, so I'm still going to do it. Even though all these things are going wrong, it's not working the way I want to. It's going to take a big investment, which, I don't mind this works for me, right? But I eventually want it to be nice and successful. But I can start from the ground
I
floor
love
too. I
that.
don't mind that.
Grassroots.
Yeah, for
That's how
sure.
that's how we are too. I mean, that's very much like identify with that a lot. But yeah, like being okay with being messy.
Yes.
And that goes very much to like along the lines of yoga, right? Like one thing I love about the practice, which is ever evolving and ever growing too, but is like this idea that, or breaking down the idea that it has to look a certain way or be for a certain person, that this is something that is available and accessible to all people, or should be at the very least, and it's not about getting it right. In fact, like the more you accept your humanness, your messiness, the more you'll get out of it.
Yes. So, but before we get into your yoga
I'm jumping
theology,
the
or
gun.
I want to get into how you started
Hmm.
yoga before
Mm.
we really get into that, because you've told me some stories about some boot camp yoga kind of
Yeah.
thing, which is super interesting.
Yeah.
So I want you to maybe start from ground zero, from
Okay.
like what interested you in yoga first, and then your process of getting to your business, I guess, first.
Right. So I was a longtime runner. That was my main sport. I started running when I was 13, my freshman year in high school, and fell in love with it pretty quick. And saw some good success in high school. Went on to pursue running in college and even post collegiately for a couple years. And ultimately, marathon training, I did something, tweaked something, and developed a really, still developed an injury, my low back, and trained through the marathon, ran the marathon, and the injury just never went away. So I tried everything. I'd take time off and then come back, and nothing was working. I tried massage therapy and acupuncture and chiropractic work, all fantastic, and yet I think it was just relying too much on someone else to help me get
Okay.
better.
All
And I
right.
wasn't
All right.
like, yeah, taking it more responsibility for it, I would say, or taking the supplemental activities seriously,
Okay.
And so yeah, so anyways, I decided, okay, well, before I try running anymore, I'm just going to stretch the heck out of my body until it's like everything's back in place. I got to get my bones readjusted and the muscles around that got to loosen up to allow the bones to get back into place. Yoga will be great for that. So many people have been telling me, anyways, for years, like yoga is a great complement to running. Do that. So I tried it out a couple times in college, and I liked it okay. I wasn't too caught on to it, but um, yeah, just kind of dabbled around in different styles of yoga. There's lots of different styles, from like the flow style to like very restorative yin. There's um, Bikram yoga, which is like sequential, very regimented hot yoga. Like so many different types, and I didn't really find one that called to me until I moved to Durham, which was in, when was that? Uh, 2017. Yeah. And I found a yoga studio just driving by it in downtown Durham, and I was like, I'll give them a shot. And I loved the style. It's called Baptiste Power Yoga. And so a lot of the Baptiste Power Yoga is, a lot of the methodology is around um, like a really like self empowerment, finding, creating power, vitality, and freedom in your body, in your life through the physical practice. And it spoke to me. It spoke to me. It's also a very rigorous practice, which like went right in line with my running. It's like it felt like 60 minutes of like what I would get from a 60-minute run. We'd get our cardio up, heart rate going, and then get like incredible leg workout, arm workout, and all the chaturangas, everything. And then at the end, get our restorative stretching and bliss out in shavasana. So I loved it. I fell in love with it right away.
Do you think you loved it because of the combination of the toughness and the mental,
Absolutely.
spiritual side of that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was, and there's even like this running thing that said within the yoga world, it's like most people come to yoga because they need to heal from something.
Okay.
And then most often that's taken, it's very literal most often, and it's taken most literal. But we're all healing from something
For sure.
at some level.
Mhm.
And so yeah, and if it falls on the right ears at the right time, yeah, it'll change you, it'll transform you. And it definitely landed for me in that time.
Okay, so you found this Baptiste yoga spot in
Hmm.
Durham, and okay, you're really liking this thing, and eventually you get invited to this boot camp. Or how does that work? Tell me
Yeah.
about that.
Okay. So um, yeah, the studio owner at the time, she was very committed to Baptiste methodology, and spoke often of the man who um, created the style back in the 80s. He was uh, uh, late 80s, early 90s is really when he took off, and had videos, Baptiste, hot power yoga, like that. All of that was new, essentially created it. Um, and This was when he was in his 30s, I suppose. And so here we are 20 years later, and he's running boot camps. He's been doing it for years and years and years, 3 or 4 boot camps a year, different level tiers. So there's level 1, level 2, level 3. And you sign up for it, but you go away well, I went to New York, but there was a location in Tulum, Mexico, or you could go to Arizona, or you could go Utah, like different locations all around, and the country, and spend a week with Baron Baptiste and his team. And it's funny because there were a handful of people that would show up there and they're like, I'm going to a yoga retreat. It was not a yoga retreat. No,
It,
this was boot camp style.
and it's probably mending because you have to go through that sometimes, like to get to the spiritual part of it. You have to go through a little bit of
Oh, yeah, there's a breakdown before there's a breakthrough.
sure,
Right.
sure.
Yeah, and so definitely in in a very intense way, but um, so purposeful. It was physically demanding, rigorous. We would practice for hours on our own, and then practice teaching to other people. Um, and then on top of that, we would have meditations and breakout sessions of um, group inquiry, basically, and we spent every hour of every day for those 6 7 days with a group of 100 of us, and no cell phone. Anywhere we were was like
Right.
no cell phone service. We weren't communicating with our family outside during that time, so it was very intense. It was a container that was created where we could all kind of come together and open up, be real, be raw about what we're managing in our lives, what we're dealing with, and coming out on the other side of that at the end of the week.
That's intense.
Intense,
That's
yeah,
intense.
it was.
Yeah.
It was transformative for me too. Like I definitely came back changed in a lot of ways, I would say,
Wow.
from the experience. Yeah.
Wow. Look, and
Yeah.
and that's gotten you to this point today. So, going on about that, uh, what are kind of, I mean, I know a little bit of it, but what are the teachings of yoga, or what, it, I guess, put your spin on it, or whatever the spin is of what is yoga doing? Because it's been in practice for years. It's like the longest practice of exercise.
More than 3,000 years old.
Yeah, and
Hmm.
you look in through ancient religious texts, and they're talking about like yoga. So I don't know. Take me through that for maybe some people that have never done yoga, or just think of it as maybe an exercise. I think that's the wrong way to think of it, the
Mm.
yoga, because
Hmm.
I think it's the wrong way to think about exercise in general,
Yeah.
because it is such a mental and spiritual thing.
Tap into
If you can
that.
tap into
Hmm.
that, yeah, if
Hmm.
you can go hard enough or exert yourself hard enough, I think you have to do something where you're physically exerting yourself, or you're demanding a lot from yourself, because what you describe as that boot camp, I describe me when I did bodybuilding shows, because it takes so much
Mm-hmm.
of your time, your energy, and your effort, it transforms you.
Yeah.
Because the main thing it changed for me was the self-belief in myself. Before that, maybe I could have thought I could have done some things, but now I swear I feel like I can do anything. I know it's going to take time. I know it's going to take effort. I know it's going to take consistency, discipline, all these things. But I really do feel like I can do anything if I put the time to it, if I put the effort to it.
Right.
And it taught me that, because I got to a point, like, I looked at myself in the mirror. I was like, holy shit. I look like that. That's crazy to me. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And it took all those things to get there. But in the end of it, it was this breakthrough of, I wouldn't say self-mastery, because that's a hard thing to achieve, but to a smaller degree of that.
Right. Growth. It's really
Yes.
growth. And what do they say? It takes 10,000 hours to be a master or something.
Yes.
So, I mean, maybe it is, if not mastery, you're in that direction. And mastery is not a finish line either, is it?
Because there's other things you got to master another, or whatever.
Yeah.
Now I'm trying to master business.
Yes.
Whatever.
So it's I don't know, even just recognizing, acknowledging, and then finding joy in the process, being present to the process along the way. I mean, that's one thing. That's one of the many things that I've taken away from the practice. And going back to, like, what is yoga? So the word itself, right? Most people will hear that and they think stretch, bend,
down dog.
Yeah, impressive arm balances or
Right.
something like that. But yoga, I always like to, oftentimes I will make it a capital Y, because really it's like a system. And with 8 limbs of yoga. And so all these parts of yoga come together to give you access to yourself with a capital S. And so how do you connect with that? Recognizing that, like, we are more than just like these bodies, and there's a spirit, there's a soul, there's the self. That's what we are. And it's kind of like stepping away from the attachment of, this is who I am, or this is what I look like, or this is what my life has been like, and so this is the way it needs to be. But recognizing that you have anything and everything within you already, and it's about accessing that. And so you can do that through the 8 limbs of yoga. Asana, the physical practice. Asana means pose or seat. So asana is what most people know as yoga.
Okay.
That's one of 8 limbs. So another limb would be like pranayama, breath work, a practice towards breath control. Okay, and then there's meditation. That is a limb.
Yes.
And these are things that I'll pull into class a little bit
for sure
when we're here, right? Yeah, and so you have these tools to explore and to access, to get more deeply connected with yourself. That's what yoga is to me. And that's the amazing thing. It's like, no matter how you're drawn into the practice, because some people will, I met people who were new to yoga, but they've had a meditation practice for years and years. They're like, oh yeah, my 10 minutes in the morning are sacred to me. It's my quiet time. It's to get clear into out of my head, into my body,
yes.
Get ready for the day, and figured I'll try some yoga now. And other people, their entry point is yoga. A lot of people, entry point. And the physical, what a great way to start. That's what lands you in the present anyways, getting into your body and embodying your experience.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. I need to look into those 8 things, because
the 8 limbs.
Yeah, the 8 limbs. I need to look into that.
Yeah.
But
I know that would be like 10 more, a lot more podcast episodes to
yeah.
go through each limb.
Yeah, but, I bet. But like you said, there are so many things. The reason I got this place, or the reason I wanted to start a gym and personal training, it's got something to do with that and how to integrate that into training. Mm-hmm. But you have to have a certain kind of well, It's interesting, right? It's interesting because you want it to be what it was for you for them,
Mm.
and what it was for you, you took a certain approach to it, probably that maybe not a lot of people are going to take. But sometimes it takes time for them to get there, and sometimes you have to be patient with that, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, but it's interesting trying to figure out how to do that without, because they have to make that decision themselves.
Right.
As no matter what, or no matter how you present things, people are only going to do what they want to do, I think. And so, unless they have that desire, I don't think it's achievable until they have that desire.
Yeah, there definitely takes an unlocking, and that can be inspired by someone outside of them, absolutely. And that's the powerful thing about being a business owner or a coach is that, finding the words, it's like not doing the thing for the person, but offering the support and
Yeah,
the knowledge and the experience you have to guide them towards them experiencing that for themselves.
right,
Yeah.
right. Because we all want them to feel that. Um, yeah, interesting.
Hmm.
So let's talk about you got into coaching,
Yes.
coaching with kids. I did
Yeah.
a little bit of coaching
There is
myself.
that.
Same concepts though. You're
Yeah.
teaching them and whatever. So take us through that experience with.
It has been a blast. Yeah, and it's mind blowing that so we're working with sixth grade to eighth grade. I did have a small group of ninth graders because the school that I'm at, they're transitioning to middle high school charter. So this was the first year introducing the first of those grades, ninth
Right.
grade. So we're working with a group of from about 11-year-olds to 14-year-olds. Um, this has been an age group that I've always dreaded being around. As a parent, I was like, oh my goodness, when our children are middle school, I don't know what we're going to do, kind of thing. And yet, I love this group. I wouldn't want to coach any other group now that I've had this experience
Okay.
because they can, in my experience, they can really understand. Like we can go into kind of deeper layers of the sport or just um, sports in general with them. Like they're ready to handle that a little bit more, and yet they're still like kids at heart. Like we'll play game like Friday fun day kind of thing, like incentivizing them for running all week, and we'll play like some silly game where they all get like a can't a lollipop at the end, and they're like thrilled for a single
Yeah.
lollipop. And I'm like, hold
Yes.
on to that, kiddo.
Yeah.
Hold on to that
Where's that
joy.
energy the rest of the practice?
That's what motivates them to run. A dum dum. But no, it's been a lot of fun. So the way that turned out is my son. He's a seventh grader now. So first year of middle school was last year, and my husband and I had him join the cross country team just to do a team sport. He'd never really been on a team before, and that was our background, right, running. So my son was not thrilled about it, and but then he got to fall in love with running. He enjoyed it. I mean, I wouldn't say he fell in love with it, but he enjoyed it. He didn't. He really what he enjoyed was the team aspect. He loved being able to bond and connect with other kids through sport, through running.
That's my favorite thing about sports is everybody coming together for one common goal.
Right.
And it doesn't matter what's going on with you outside of this right now, or your leg hurts, whatever. It's like let's do this together.
How
And
important of a life skill is
oh
that?
my God, it's the most important thing.
Right.
I think it's the most important thing because everybody needs social skills.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody needs to. We all need each other. We're community animals.
Mm-hmm.
We need community and learning what it takes to win.
Right.
Because life is about winning, whether you like it or not. I know some people
Setting
don't
your
like.
mind to something and then going after it.
Yeah, for sure, because you got to wake up tomorrow and you got to have food on the plate.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, really, that I think that's what um, I've seen the kids enjoy the most. The aspect of it that they enjoyed the most. Um, this season, we had a larger team, and The coaches from last year moved on from the school. And so there's a vacancy on the website. I'm like, this summer, I'm looking on the school's website to find out what like the summer training will be. And there wasn't anything up. And I noticed there was a vacancy for coaching cross country team. And so I reached out to the AD and I was like, hey, until you find someone, I have a background in running. I'd be happy to help out with the kids. And he's like, well, I did find a coach, but let me see if they need an assistant. I was like, great. So early August, I hear from the coach, and they were like, yeah, let's start a practice. Pretty much right before, like I think it was the week before school started. We started practicing, and this coach um, just really appreciates sports as well. She's a teacher at the school and played tennis and volleyball, I believe, and did like a season of cross country in middle school. So just had a general understanding about team sports. And then I came in and offered my insights from the running side and having spent so much more time in cross country and track. And so it was a really good match. A couple weeks in, that other coach, between teaching and then she's also studying for her master's degree.
Okay.
So between those two things, she was finding herself like super overwhelmed. And
For
she's
sure.
like, can I hand this off to you? I'll back you wherever I can, which was really nice to have someone on campus because I'm not on campus. And my husband has always said that he's a coach as well, cross country coach at the high school level. And he's like, you have to be there around the kids. Like it makes such a difference to be there. Like when the kids are transitioning between classes, they're stopping by. I can ask them how their day's going, or I can see how I'm able to check in with each one of them. And that's like really key there. And it's hard to get that off campus. You've got that little bit of time wrangling them all in before practice starts. You got to get to work and then they're off back going home, whatever. So I knew that that was going to be a difficult thing to juggle. And so I'm grateful that I had someone like a point person on campus. But yeah, that's how the roles pretty much switched and how I found myself as a head coach of middle school cross country.
Yeah. What would you building that relationship with them back to the community? You got to figure out how this person ticks, what you can say to this person, what you can't say to this person,
Yeah.
and developing that through seeing them at school all day. And maybe they had a bad day today or whatever, and you can tell that before they get to practice, so you can adjust accordingly. It's interesting.
Yes.
But it's necessary. I know when I coached, I was off campus too, but they came in the gym every day at 7 a.m. And that was my time to build the relationship with them and them to build the relationship with each other before baseball. So we could joke or, I could be tough on them and they could see how I kind of work too. And we learn from each other and go from there. But what would you say was the biggest thing you learned or from that experience?
Gosh, I don't know if I could pick just one thing, but
Or, I mean, you don't have to pick one. You can just ramble off a couple of them.
I think, from this experience that really there's so much that they don't quite know yet. Like they're transitioning from being kids where their parents have done essentially everything for them to being independent or a little more exploring that independence and autonomy. And so finding the balance of like, hey, you need support here and you're ready to do this on your own. And so that was like a tricky scale to balance for me. And oftentimes having been in the sport and through the sport for so long, I would find myself like almost talking ahead of them, and it would take like a look of like collective overwhelm to be like, oh my gosh, they don't know about this yet. Like let's back it up a whole ton and let's start from the basics. That might be like super intuitive for a lot of people, but it took me to realize like, whoa, like we really need to break this down. The other thing that I learned from them is like you have to repeat something 1,000 times before it actually lands on their ears too.
Yes.
And while it feels repetitive or redundant, it's landing on someone's ears each time, so it has to be done. And it still has an impact. Its impact isn't dulled by the amount of times you say it. Like sometimes I find, or oftentimes I find myself like feeling like I have to say things in new ways or in different ways for it to matter or be impactful. And it's like, no, you're putting too much attention over here when really we just need to know the fundamental things.
Yeah.
Like, give it straight up.
Yeah. 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 It's just
Simplify.
simple.
Yeah.
Simple is good.
Yeah.
Simple is good. And one of the things I really learned from it, and I've taken it to the gym, is creating plans. Like people need, like, not just what do I do now, but what's next, what's next, what's next,
Mm-hmm.
what's next. If I can have a great system, then generally we can achieve the goal or whatever it is we're trying to achieve. So let's say the goal is to win a conference championship, and you break it down backwards from there. Well, what do we got to do to win a conference championship? Maybe you got to run, what is it, you run 5Ks?
No, they're running 3Ks for middle
Oh,
school.
okay,
Mm-hmm.
3K. So you got to break that mile down to how fast do you need to run, a mile for, and then you got to do that 3 times or whatever. And that's how I did it with baseball. I was like,
Mm-hmm.
okay, we can't make any errors in the infield. So what do we got to do? We got to learn how to, like, the proper fundamentals of fielding a ground ball. And
Mm-hmm.
we got to do it time. It's like doing down dog, time after time after time until you can't get it wrong. What's the Bruce Lee quote? What's more dangerous, the guy that's practiced 1,000 kicks or the guy that's practiced one kick 1,000
Mm-hmm.
times?
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean?
Yeah,
So
right.
that's one of the things I really learned from that and took it to the gym. And as I've been training people lately, I've been, because I used to try to make it interesting for them all the time.
Right.
I'd want to make them enjoy it, or I want them to enjoy it so bad. And it's not saying it's not about that, but it's about getting in shape and getting things right, right? Doing things the right way. And sometimes it's, all right, we get a month, we got 3 days, and each day is a set of exercises. And we're not changing for a month. I want you to get this down, like get your squat down.
Mm-hmm.
And let's increase that weight every time. So it's 135 today. In 2 weeks, I want it to be 155. But and then a month, then we'll change it up. Then we'll add some spice to it so that you're still engaged and interested. But if you can't do a squat every Monday for a month, we got problems. You
Mm-hmm.
know what I mean?
Well, and that actually goes, that's really interesting because to me that goes to um, a very atrophied muscle, in my opinion, is one of focus and like attention, right? Like it's very easy to get distracted or to get bored. And like we need constant stimulus or um, some kind of external source to like amp us up. And no, actually, again, you have it within you. So you have to be willing to like, crack that open. It might take time. You might have to be like chipping at it for so long. What is it, like a drop of water?
Yeah.
But I mean, that's what built or not built, but created the Grand Canyon, right?
Right.
Little drips of water making
Mm-hmm.
their way through. And it's not going to be interesting all the time. It's not going to be exciting all the time. It's definitely not going to be easy all the time. And
No.
that's the other thing. It's like, um, it's hard to not change and it's hard to change. So you just have to choose which hard you want to take.
100%.
Yeah. Right. So, yeah.
Uh, Very good. So before we end this, what's the next stages for Trilogy
For
Yoga?
Trilogy.
Yeah, what's the next day? What are we looking at? Where's the future headed to? Or
Yeah.
any goals, any things we got?
Yeah,
We're aiming
absolutely.
for.
Absolutely. So, what we've come to is yes, we are a virtual space. Like that's what we've created, and the virtual space can exist in person in real time too. So our vision is to have a brick and mortar space, a physical space for people to come practice. Back to the original vision without alienating our virtual. So we are also exploring like the tech side, like how we can make the experience for someone who's not in the space with us, that is a part of the community, wants to be a part of the community, or how can we include them in that experience?
Right.
So, so yeah, we're looking at what that might be like, what that might look like. We're also looking to train our first group of yoga teachers in 2023. So, building a curriculum and a yoga teacher training program, which will be a hybrid.
Okay.
So it'll be in person and virtual.
All right.
Yeah,
Very good.
super exciting.
Yeah. Very
Doing
good.
more of this in person stuff, reaching more people in Creedmoor.
And you guys are great with technology. Like you guys are always posting on Instagram. Your website's updating all the time.
Yeah,
You
thank
guys
you.
stay on top of that.
That's all
Yeah.
grassroots too. I mean, we pride ourselves maybe a little too heavily on like we'll learn it and then we'll implement it, we'll figure it out and we'll try this. Let's give it a shot and see how it goes.
That's what it is. That's what it
Yeah.
takes. So you just kind of keep giving things shots, and
And really that's what like COVID showed us. It was like, okay, how do we keep offering yoga to people without being in front of them? You know, that's how we figured out Zoom. That's how we figured out um, yeah, all the things, the audio setup, the lighting, and everything. And so it can be done, but it's constant innovation.
one of the things I've learned too is building a community takes longer than you expect because it's it's not like, all right, or let's say John comes in and I start building that relationship with him. It's going to take him a while before I can convince him to do something with us. You know what I mean? But the fact that I'm constantly saying, "Hey, how you doing?" every time he's in here, or like, "Hey, what's up? Is your day going good?" And because people's trust, you have to build that into a factor too, because you're trying to win their trust. Trust is such a hard thing to.
Well, and what that like says to me also is pointing out this is also something that like I became aware of through yoga, but that everyone wants to be seen and heard. And that's what it boils down to.
Yeah.
Is like you doing that. That's not with you like this ulterior motive in your brain saying like that's a potential, you know, gym member or whatever. You genuinely, and I've gotten this from you from our Instagram messaging first days, is that like you want and you create authentic like connection. I feel that from you. And everyone wants that. Everyone wants to feel like they're here, they're cared about, they matter.
Well, you know, I think they do.
Yes,
you know, I think they do.
absolutely.
Yeah, yeah. I enjoy like I want to build relationships with people too. That's what I want to do. I want to get to know you better. I want to know about you. I want to know where you came from. Just because I don't know, I'm interested in people. I like that about people. And it's like, hey, what's up, buddy? How's your mom? Whatever. Like I'm interested in how is she? You know, whatever. So.
No, that's awesome.
Yeah,
we need more of that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thanks for doing this. This was fun, right?
This is super fun.
Hey, maybe we'll do it again,
we'll
right?
talk about the 8 limbs.
Yeah. All right, Claudine.
All right, cool.
Thank you.